Hey, OncoPT, and welcome to another episode of the OncoPT podcast. I'm so thrilled that you're joining me today because we are talking about something that has truly carried me over the last almost 3 years. So if you did not know, because I've talked about this before on the podcast, but I still don't think that I've talked about it as much as what I think I talk about it in my own head. Enough of the chat around it. Let's just chat about it. In 2020, I left my corporate physical therapy position at my absolute dream job. It really was. And it was a major culture shock and frankly, hit to my ego when I finally made the decision that I needed to leave. As I mentioned, this was absolutely my dream job. And this was the first job that I ever had after graduating from physical therapy school. And I envisioned myself working at this job for maybe like the rest of my career. Maybe that sounds naive. I don't know, but I truly felt so connected and excited and passionate about that particular job that when it all went south over the period of 2 years, particularly during COVID, it was a huge identity shift for me. Realizing that this vision I had for myself of my career was not going to be a thing was really challenging. And when I left that first job that I had, my first OncoPT job, I felt shame. I felt guilt. I felt stressed. I felt frustrated, burnt out even. And I was even starting to question if I wanted to be a physical therapist anymore, which is shocking. Like, I spent all this time and energy to become a physical therapist, not just during PT school, but the time leading up to that, to then all of a sudden maybe not want to do this anymore. It was really, really hard, as I'm sure you can imagine. But the only thing that kept me going during that time was this amazing group of physical therapists that I came to know and who truly rallied around me and became my, like, a pseudo support group during that time. And as strong as I know you are, yeah, you who's listening to this right now, as strong as I know you are, we're not islands, right? There is no one person show in cancer rehab that is effective, right? Now, someone could be a one person show. Like, I was a one clinician in a one clinician clinic, but I wasn't necessarily the most effective or efficient that I could have been. In order to truly treat our patients how they deserve to be treated, how they need to be treated, it takes a village in cancer rehab. And I mean that with the best, like the highest compliments. If we're really going to work with this very exciting, challenging, unique patient population, we need a supportive community. We need a village to back us, right? With all the major ups and downs that we experience as OncoPTs, it's crucial to surround ourselves with those supportive voices and, frankly, hands to lift us up sometimes. And that community may be physically near to you. Like here in Fort Worth, Texas, I have this amazing group of physical therapists who, and actually, we're now multidisciplinary. It's not just PTs. I have this amazing group of women that I've connected with over the past few years who have become my wine nights. Like, we try to do once a month, once every other month, where we go out and we just chat about things. Sometimes it's related to rehab, sometimes it's not. I've also found an amazing group of women who are private practice owners, and we get together usually once a month and we get to chat and talk about challenges that we're facing. But what I've realized from both of these experiences, both of these groups that I'm a part of, is that I didn't realize how alone I was until I started spending time with these amazing people, and not just like socializing with them, but learning a lot with them. And I'm truly convinced that this is what has continued to allow me to advance and transform into a clinician that I'm hoping is making little old PT school Elise proud in the work that I'm doing. And it just shows to highlight how important it is to have this community. But if you're not convinced that you need a community in cancer rehab, let's chat honestly about some of the challenges that we face as being cancer rehab pros. As you know, you don't need me to tell you this, you play such a crucial, such a critical role when it comes to helping your patients regain their physical strength, but also their emotional well-being after experiencing a cancer diagnosis. And that's amazing. And that is super for me. That is super feel good. And that can power me through a lot of days. But you also know that your work comes with a set of unique challenges that can really have a toll on your emotional and your physical health. One of the most significant challenges that you face during your day is the emotional impact of working with a patient population who is dealing with such a significant diagnosis, right? This is not a rotator cuff injury. I'm picturing, so me personally, Elise, had a rotator cuff injury in high school. And like, yeah, there were emotions around that, but nothing that I could ever equate or connect to the level of emotional experience that a person has once they're diagnosed with cancer, right? And we see day after day that patients are in pain, they're uncomfortable, they're experiencing these side effects, these impairments, maybe even suffering. I don't use that word lightly. It does weigh very heavily on me, like what that means, but also even dying. And that's not easy, right? That's a lot. And the emotional weight of this experience for us can be overwhelming and maybe even emotionally draining. And when we're witnessing the struggles of our patients, but also their families, their friends, their caregivers, that takes a toll on our mental health. And it's not because you're weak, it's not because you're not strong. It is, we are human. And that is part of the experience of, you have chosen to use your amazing skill set and your amazing personality to help so many different people in a really, really cool way. I'm biased, of course, but obviously, like the best way you can in physical therapy. It's critical that we are making sure that we are making space and taking time for our own mental health and seeking support to process these emotions effectively. you know Maybe for you that's a like a professional, right? A therapist or a counselor, but maybe you need that kind of support from a community. See how we're tying this all back together, right? Now, your patients also present with complex medical conditions and presentations. I'm just picturing some of the patients that I've worked with over the past few years, and I definitely have been like, what in the actual F is going on here, right? And I'm sure you've had the same experience. Rehabilitating these patients with complex medical conditions requires specialized knowledge and skills. Y'all, I don't know if you've thought about the knowledge and skills that it takes that you have to treat these patients, but it is supreme. Like, you have to always be staying on top of things. And so you have to be staying updated, up to date with the latest cancer treatments, which we know those are coming out all the time, which is exciting, but also like, man, I have to learn more about this insert treatment here, right? So we have to keep up with the latest advancements in cancer treatment, but also the side effects that could come along with that, how we're managing side effects that are presenting that we previously didn't even see because patients weren't living that long, but also the latest rehabilitation techniques, right? It's not just the cancer advances we're seeing, but also what is happening within the field of rehab, where we're learning how to be a better rehab professional, right? And so keeping up with this rapidly evolving field of oncology plus rehab can be very challenging. It requires a lot of time and effort and continuing education and professional development on our part to be a part of that. The reason I bring this up is because community can be a really powerful tool by which you can get connected with some of this information and these advancements without having to shoulder the burden of doing that all on your own. It's helpful to have someone who can take you by the hand and say, hey, look what I found. Or, hey, I'm sending you this quick message with a link to an article I just found. I think it's going to be really helpful for that patient you were telling me about the other day. So building a strong support system is vital for making sure that you are able to both cope with the challenges of our profession emotionally, physically, but also from a knowledge and skills perspective. These supportive relationships can create an outlet for you by which you can be real, right? With your friends, with your colleagues, and maybe not colleagues that you work immediately with, but in this field of cancer rehab, where you can say, man, I am really struggling with this right now. And having someone on the other end of that conversation, whatever that looks like for you, who can say, I get it. I get it, friend. I understand. And maybe they're sitting there, they're listening with you. Maybe they're also like, you know what? I have just the thing that's going to help you with this. So again, how does community fit into this concept of being a better cancer rehab professional? For starters, community for me is not just a buzz phrase. It is not just a, oh, let's have like a little nice little online, Facebook group where I can, like maybe ask a question and then it just kind of like it's just chaos, right? I think we've all been a part of a Facebook group that just descends into chaos and then you don't even get any value from it anymore, right? That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about a true community, a support system that you can rely on to help you become the best version of OncoPT that you can be. This holds immense significance in the context of your work as a cancer rehab professional, right? We're building connections with fellow professionals who are just as excited and passionate as you when it comes to treating your patients, but who also understand the challenges that you've had along the way. And they can provide you with both emotional and professional support, as in like climbing up the ladder, whatever that looks like for you, who can really understand the up and down nature of our work and sometimes the challenges and the toll that it can have on us as human beings. So by engaging with a truly collaborative, engaging, supportive community of cancer rehab professionals, you open yourself up to a world of possibilities, of experiences, right? Maybe that's, hey, I am going to go meet up with my friend in another city and I'm going to go shadow with them at this particular specialized, patient population treatment center that they work with, right? Maybe that's, I need a friend in this big old world who knows what I'm going through and can also hold me accountable to doing the things I say I'm going to do to be a better physical therapist, right? It also allows us insight into different perspectives. As far as, I see that you're doing this with your patient who has this. Can I do the same thing over here with my patient? Is that going to help them? I've never thought about it this way before. Maybe that's something that I should take and then incorporate into my own practice, right? So this exposure to other perspectives, to other rehab professionals, is going to allow you to tap into this collective wisdom and experience. It's almost like vicariously living and learning, if you know what I mean, where I'm not the one who's necessarily like right there right now doing that intervention with that patient, but I can learn from their experience and then implement it in my own practice. And I'd say that is well worth it. So, in addition to the exposure that you can get, it also contributes to your emotional well-being. Being a part of a community where you can do this sort of peer learning allows you to, again, learn from their insights, learn from their experience, but then also keep you abreast and updated of all the changes that are happening. No matter how much time you spend looking over the articles and how many Google alerts you send, like set up for yourself. Google Scholar alerts is what I'm trying to say. You are never going to catch every single new, like latest and greatest thing that is happening in cancer rehab. And this is a good thing because that means that there are so many new and exciting things happening all the time. And that's great for us, and that's even better for our patients. So, because of all these new things that are happening all the time, that are coming out and emerging and advancing all the time, you can't keep up with it. So, why not lean back? Why not rely on this amazing community that you have curated, that you have fostered within cancer rehab to help fill in the gaps along the way? They're going to find stuff that you didn't, and that is okay. In fact, that is a really, really good thing because, again, you're going to be able to leverage their experiences, their perspective, their insight into better treating your patients without having to do all the work. I really, really like the concept of synergy, and I think this is where community really comes in. So in math, which we're not going to do crazy math right now, in math, 1 plus 1 equals 2. If you're doing things by yourself, right? You put in a certain effort, you're going to see a certain degree of result. But with synergy, where we're working together, where we are leaning on others and allowing them to harness their strengths and us to then benefit from those strengths, and then we are able to, work in our zone of genius, and then other colleagues benefit from that. This creates not a 1 + 1 = 2 situation, but a 1 + 1 = 5 situation. I know the typical synergy definition is 1 + 1 = 3. I think it's so much bigger than that. I really do. And this is, I think, what we are missing a lot of in cancer rehab, is that we are not necessarily always collaborating and working together to help each other. I think we see a lot of this in other rehab domains, other professions especially. I think we have a real opportunity here in cancer rehab to do the same thing, which is what we're working on. Again, I'm jumping ahead of myself. More on this later. But beyond just the professional growth that you can see, the professional development that you can experience as a result of being part of a community, the emotional support that you can get throughout all of this experience of being part of a really thriving, engaging, collaborative, supportive community is so, so important. And it can really help to eliminate those feelings of isolation. Like I talked about earlier in this episode, one of the things I really struggled with as a new PT working in this previous position that I held is that it was very isolating. Yes, I had my patients. My patients were awesome, y'all. Like the best. They were not the isolating part by any means. In fact, they helped to relieve some of that, but they couldn't relieve all of it because they were my patients. I did have someone else who worked physically in that same location in an administrative capacity. Not the same, right? I yearned to have another therapist in there who I could bounce ideas off of, but who could also help me kind of process the challenges that I was going through. Like the first time I cried through an evaluation, that was day one. Day one of my job. Or when I had my first patient die. I wish I had had someone who could have just talked to me during that time, who understood it, right? It's so much different. And I'm extremely blessed, y'all. My husband is also a physical therapist. He works in outpatient, ortho, athletic, very active patient populations, like has nothing to do with cancer as much as he can do with, as much as he can control that. But coming home and talking to him about that was just not the same as having someone that I knew I could go and talk to about this. And I so desperately wished I had that, especially as a new physical therapist, especially as a new grad who was like, oh my God, what do I do here? So the sense of connection and camaraderie that is found within a community can become a great source of strength for you during those tough times. That will be there. If you haven't had tough times yet, just wait, they're around the corner. Just like the good times are. The good times are coming back. And this community can be a tremendous catalyst for personal and professional growth as a physical therapist in cancer rehab. So I think now begs the question of, where do I find this community? How do I get started in this community? Like where, why, how, when, etc. And so here's what we're going to chat about next. So in order to really build or curate your community within cancer rehab, there's a few different tools at our disposal. There's a few different outlets that we can tap into in order to do this, right? So one of the big things that I have loved coming out of 2020 pandemic, etc., is the increasing presence online of a lot of different rehab professionals. And so there are maybe like some Facebook groups out there. I know there's Facebook groups because I'm a part of them, but there's also a lot of other places that we can connect, right? Social media is part of it. Although sometimes that community component of social media, I think, is lacking. Maybe there's like some LinkedIn groups. I also, shameless plug, we have our free online community called the Cancer Rehab Community. I have linked to that in the show notes. That, like I said, is free. And these spaces, particularly the cancer rehab community, provide a space for you to discuss patient cases, to share, and then be shared with different resources in order to better treat your patients with X, Y, and Z condition, right? X, Y, and Z impairment, or who are undergoing X, Y, and Z cancer treatment, right? And we can also connect with fellow rehab professionals who are just as excited and passionate about working with this patient population. Now, it's not enough to just join these communities, right? You have to be an active, engaging participant. This is not one of those like osmosis situations where you can just lurk in the shadows like I do on Twitter and expect to all of a sudden just be overwhelmed with the amount of community you feel, right? Community is something that you have to equally participate in building if you're really going to see the benefits out of it. So no lurking when it comes to community. However, lurk all you want on other places. Like I said, I love to lurk on Twitter. I don't post there very much, but I am there and I do read the stuff. And it is wild. Now, there's also other in-person places that you can go to in order to help build your community, right? So maybe this is through attending conferences or continuing education courses or even networking events in your area. These are effective ways to connect with your peers and your colleagues and again, build those relationships. And one of the things I really enjoy and like about in-person events now that they're actually like happening more regularly again is it's a really great way to start building those relationships that can sometimes be challenging if you're just like messaging or emailing back and forth, right? So with this, I find that people are sometimes, right, as a socially awkward person, I'm pretty awkward in public, like sorry, it's not intentional, it's just the way I am. But once you get chatting with somebody and you get to talking and you see just how much excitement that person has about something, it's really easy to be able to lean into that conversation, engage in those face-to-face interactions, nerd out a little bit about things, exchange ideas, and just build those really meaningful connections with others in this amazing field that we're in. And so I would really encourage you, if you are like, man, I want to get out there and do these in-person events, there's a lot out there. Some are relate, like you can find your community in cancer rehab. You can also find like a local community. For example, the Fort Worth area is absolutely just teeming with all kinds of amazing networking groups for different, something that I'm interested in right now is like young professionals. My husband is also really involved in the Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and they have become just this amazing community for the both of us. I would say like community now edging on family. Like they have totally just taken us under their wing and are just really good for our business side of things, which is really cool. But there's lots of different ways that you can find and curate and build your community in your physical geographical location. And so I would really encourage you get out there, check those out, and then seek out these individuals who can become these valuable contacts, in order to help you build your community of support around you. As I've mentioned previously, it is not enough to be a lurker when it comes to a community. Again, on social media, I'm not necessarily looking for a community there when I'm scrolling on my personal time, right? I am there to send memes and reels back and forth to my sister and our friends. Like that's what I want to do. I'm not looking for community in that regard. But you have to, if you're looking for a community, a true community to engage in, to build, you need to be active and engaged and actually participate in them, right? Maybe that's contributing to different discussions that are happening online. Maybe that's going out and introducing yourself to different people, right? Whatever that looks like, if you're really going to see the benefits from the community, you have to get involved in the community and do things with the community. Now, community is not just a how can I advance my career professionally? Like, how can I get ahead? How can I climb the corporate ladder? That's not all that community is good for, although it is really, really good for those things. Community can also help inspire you in your work. I know for me, when I was newly unemployed after I left that position, I was burnt out, like burnt to a crisp. I felt like someone had run me into the ground. I was tired. I was stressed. I feel like my hair was falling out, like all the things, right? And I was really lacking that spark. That spark that first drew me into cancer rehab, that spark that first got me interested in physical therapy in the first place. And I think when you choose to surround yourself or be a part of a community where there are excited professionals and colleagues in this area, there's nothing like it's almost like a side effect. Side effect makes it sound bad. I think their excitement, what I'm trying to say here is their excitement, their passion, their determination, it's contagious. in the best way possible. I think it really, when we see how much the community is thriving and building, I think we can feed on that. Like it spills over into us, onto us, where we can be like, yeah, I'll take two of those, please. Right? So when you're looking for your community, when you're trying to engage, I would really, really encourage you. It is not just for your professional advancement that you should be a part of a community, right? That is absolutely a benefit. And I would totally encourage you, like, make the most of those opportunities because you never, ever know what is going to come your way. For example, I'll tie it back here. So my husband was the first one in our family who got really involved with the Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And he was like, oh my gosh, it's so great. Like, you have to get involved. I was like, I don't know. Like, I just don't know if it's the right fit for me. He's like, no, like you got to join. You got to do it. And so I joined. And that has been, if he's listening, thank you, husband, for getting me to join the chamber, because it has been a life-changing opportunity. And I mean that with all sincerity in my heart. Last week, for example, I was the MC at a business pitch competition, y'all. And the year before, I actually participated in that business pitch competition and won prize money that helped me with my own business, with my own private practice. And those opportunities I would not have known about genuinely and been able to and confident enough to participate in those things if I hadn't first been a part of the community. First as the contestant, but then this year as the MC. And y'all, when I say that, that was so fun. It was so fun. And I also got to like meet a bunch of business owners. One of the business owners has a hot dog food truck here in Fort Worth, and I freaking love hot dogs. So like there were a lot of good things that came out of this. But also getting to just get out there and serve the community in this way was really, really cool. And it was really rewarding. And it was something that I hadn't anticipated. Like, I got to be a part of somebody's dreams coming true. And like, I just got chills right now. Like, how cool is that? But it is only, these things only happened because I put myself out there and decided to be a part of a community. And now I'm like, I need to be an even bigger part of that community. Like, I need to get plugged in. I need to do all the things because it was so fun. It was so cool. And I can't wait to see what else comes out of it because I had such a good time doing it. And I know I'm helping other people. And man, that like really drives me. And I think that is what I was missing so desperately when I left not my private practice, when I left my corporate practice a few years ago, is I did not have that community, that connection to where I felt like I had someone to really fall back on, even when times got really, really hard. When I left my dream job because it became my nightmare. I needed a community more than ever then. And so I decided, fast forward, when I feel like I'm kind of recovering from that experience. Now that I'm on the other side of that and I have these amazing groups of friends, both PT but also like not PT related, who have really kind of like pulled me up to get out of that funk. I want nothing but that for everyone here. For everyone who's listening to this podcast, for everyone who's not listening to this podcast, I want you to know that you have a supportive place where you can come as you are, as yourself, with your passion and your determination and your quirkiness and your weirdness, like me, for cancer rehab, and know that you belong there. And you are going to get benefit from that, and you are going to learn, and you're going to grow into the best version of OncoPT that you can be for yourself. Because I know that if I had had that, I can say with certainty, I would not have been as burnout as what I was. I would not have felt as isolated as what I was. And I certainly would not have been questioning if I even wanted to be a physical therapist in the first place. It breaks my heart to think back and know that those were my feelings. But I know that is my experience, and it is okay that I had that experience because now I'm on the other side of that. And now it's time to help people so that they don't feel that same way. Right? That's what is really, really important here. Now, of course, if you ever feel like, man, this burnout, this isolation, these feelings that I'm having are too big, are too overwhelming for just me, then please, please, please get professional help, right? As someone who has just started therapy and is like having the time of my life in it, it's not fun. It's really hard work, but I know I'm doing like really good things for myself that I should have done 15 years ago. It is so, so necessary. And so if you know that you need that professional help, please do not hesitate to seek that out, because it's really, really good. But know that you don't have to face this by yourself. Cancer rehab is beautiful and difficult all at the same time. And that's okay that it is at the same time, those things. But I never want you to feel alone. I never want you to feel like you don't have the resources and the support system to back you up as you are charging forward in this amazing field of cancer rehab to better serve the patients in your community. So, with all that said, as I mentioned previously, we have our free online community, the Cancer Rehab Community, which I will, of course, link to in the show notes. But I also want to share this brand new community experience with you that is waiting for you. And that's why I'm so excited to announce that the first ever Cancer Rehab Community Conference is taking place Saturday, November 11th, 2023. This is a virtual conference that we are hosting that is for you and all about cancer rehab. So this conference is going to have some of the most dynamic and engaging, exciting, and frankly obsessed speakers in the cancer rehab space who are going to teach you how to actually treat your oncology patients. And not just how to treat them, get started, but how to treat them better today, how to better advocate for your patients, right? How to be that patient advocate that we know our patients need, and how to actually make a difference in the world of cancer rehabilitation. I don't know about you, but I am tired of conferences that are really expensive and that don't actually teach me, the early clinician, the early years OncoPT, how to better treat my patients with cancer, right? I either feel like it is so, so basic, like what is cancer, or it is so far over my head that I'm like, I don't even know what this means, let alone how to actually implement it in my practice. The Cancer Rehab Community Conference is filling that gap for you and for all of us here. You can save your seat now at the oncopt.com/conference, but hurry, because at the time of this episode releasing, it is July, and early bird tickets are only available for a very limited time. So make sure to save your seat now. Again, you can find and claim your ticket at the oncopt.com/conference, and mark your calendars, y'all, because I cannot wait to see you there. Until next time, this is Elise with the OncoPT. And remember, you are exactly the physical therapist that your patients with cancer need. So let's get to work.